Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shelly Makeja, your host for the day, and take immense pleasure and pride to welcome you all on behalf of NATHEALTH Healthcare Federation of India to the 5th annual event of NATHEALTH NATHEALTH 2018. Ladies and gentlemen,
to create a better and brighter future for Indian healthcare.
Moving ahead now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to start with our inaugural session, for which I would like to invite on stage our dignitaries. Firstly, I would like to invite on stage our guest of honor, Additional Secretary and Director General CGHS, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Dr. R.K. Watts, President NATHEALTH, Honorary Brigadier and Chairman Managing Director, Dr. Lal Labs, Honorary Brigadier Dr. Arvind Lal, Past President NATHEALTH, Mr. Sushovan Das Gupta, and Managing Director of Johnson & Johnson Medical India and Vice President Orthopedics Asia Pacific, along with Mr. Anjan Bose, Secretary General NATHEALTH, to kindly join us up on the stage. I request Past President NATHEALTH, Mr. Sushovan Das Gupta, to kindly come forward and deliver the welcome address.
Respected Dr. Watts, Dr. Lal, Anjan Lal, all respected dignitaries out here and my friends in NATHEALTH. Very good morning to all of you. It's a privilege and an honor to be given the opportunity to be able to provide the welcome address in this very prestigious event of the 5th annual event for NATHEALTH. So I would like to thank the organizers for that as well. The theme of the conference today is Empower, Reinvent, or Reinvent, Empower and Heal. And it could not be more apt than when I look at all the healthcare environment and the surroundings that are happening today. So you look at the healthcare scenario, you could describe it as volatile, you could describe it as uncertain, but you could also describe it as hugely opportunity in front of us and something that is very positive.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing us and setting the tone of the entire event. Awarded with Padma Shri in 2009 for his contribution to medicine and credited with modernizing Indian medical diagnostic, he is a pioneer in bringing laboratory services in India at par with the Western world. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite NATHEALTH President and Chairman Managing Director of Dr. Lal Lab Limited, Honorary Brigadier Dr. Arvind Lal, to kindly give us the NATHEALTH update. Sir.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 5th annual event of NATHEALTH, and especially those of you who have come from outside Delhi. Some have come from outside countries also, so welcome once again. So I congratulate NATHEALTH on its 5th annual event today, and our theme, as you have just heard from Sushoban, is Reinvent, Empower and Heal. NATHEALTH has been created with a vision to be the credible and unified voice in improving access and quality of healthcare. Leading healthcare service providers, medical technology providers, that is including devices, equipments and IT, diagnostic service providers, health insurance companies, health education institutions, medical journalism companies, biotech, life sciences related companies, healthcare publishers, healthcare consultants, home care companies, private equity and venture capital companies and other stakeholders have come together to build NATHEALTH as a common platform to create the next level of momentum in Indian healthcare. So congratulations to all of you on that. I will just take a few seconds more to tell you that now we have 20 healthcare delivery companies or hospitals with us, 35 healthcare technology equipment devices and healthcare IT companies, 12 diagnostics and imaging service providers, 4 health education providers, 4 healthcare insurance providers, 5 healthcare at home companies, 1 dental health company, 6 consultancy companies, 4 associations of various hospitals and nursing homes, 3 private equity and venture capital companies, and 1 biotech and life sciences company, besides many more. So what we have been indulging in the last 1 year is, as all of you have seen and heard and experienced, that there is some kind of a trust deficit between ourselves, that is the healthcare companies and the government on one hand, the people on the other hand, that is the population, and the media on the other hand. So we have tried our level best to bridge this gap.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing us. And now I have the privilege of requesting our guest of honor, Dr. R.K. Watts, Additional Secretary and Director General, CGHS, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, to kindly address us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to share my thoughts with you. A lot has been happening in health sector last year. A lot has been happening. What you learned during budget. We have a clearly defined roadmap now. The theme this year incidentally coincides with our vision: reinvent, empower and heal, which totally gels with our view of the policies, which is now turning what I would describe as pro-patient. Last year, we had embarked upon a plan to make ease of getting healthier. This is such a sector where not only patient, general public population, healthcare providers, and other co-workers.
Mr. Anjan Bose, Secretary General of NATHEALTH, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
It's good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Always a pleasure to give a vote of thanks. Easiest and the most pleasant duty, perhaps. President Abraham Lincoln once said that when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. And that is my religion. Last couple of years in Indian healthcare has been pretty much turbulent. And there has been not always good times, as we say. The feelings have not always been good. Now, I think this is the time for us to introspect and retrospect. What are the right roadmaps ahead? What is the roadmap that will make us feel good about healthcare in India? What is the roadmap that will be good for the progress of the sector? What is the roadmap that will be good for the health of the nation? Perhaps it's time to introspect as a team, like Dr. Sri Watts mentioned very kindly. and offered government's partnership and collaboration. We really appreciate that. Let's also this is an opportunity to recap. Healthcare is a unique sector. Sometimes I hesitate to call healthcare an industry. This is a unique sector. At the end of, I won't call it supply chain, the value chain is not an inanimate object like a computer or an electric bulb or a pen. At the end of the value chain, you have a living human body in agony, ailing, surrounded by more agonized relatives and friends. It's highly volatile environment, full of passion. This is different from other sectors, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know.
Meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to avail this opportunity of thanking all our partners and sponsors for making this event a huge success. Our event partners who have been Invest India Austrade, Platinum sponsors, Max Healthcare Limited and Dr. Lal Path Labs Limited. Gold sponsors, PD Hinduda National Hospital and MRC. Our silver sponsors, Johnson & Johnson Private Limited, Boston Scientific India Private Limited, Therago India Private Limited, Indus Health Plus Private Limited, IMS, Health Information and Consulting Services India Private Limited, Philips India Limited, Roche Diagnostics India Private Limited, Siemens and GE. Our bronze sponsors, Midmark India Private Limited, Badge Category, Polymedicure Limited. Our knowledge partners and concept partners, Bain & Company, PricewaterhouseCoopers, the Boston Consulting Group and Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu India Private Limited, and our media partners, HealthBiz India, Medgate Today, ethealthworld.com, and BTVI is our principal media partner. And we'd like to especially thank our event management agency, Impact Public Relations Private Limited, who has relentlessly worked hard to make this event a huge success. This is our very first panel discussion on the topic top clinicians, concerns and challenges in today's healthcare, which is a very relevant topic keeping in mind the current scenario of the healthcare industry. Dr. Ashok Rajgopal, Executive Director and Chairman of Fortis Bone and Joint Institute, Fortis Group of Hospitals, NCR, India.
I'm really thankful to the panelists here for taking out their time to talk about this topic. And if I can get started, and Dr. Chaube, if I could come to you first. One of the things that we want to start off with is really if you think about the patient doctor or the patient clinician equation, there has been, I would say from the outside, some level of deterioration in the trust that exists in that relationship. And what would you say are some of the challenges around why that's happening? And what would hospitals or regulators or the media, what is the role that other people could play in improving that relationship?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for having us here all together. I think it's a very relevant and very important question which has been raised. And I think you have very politely raised that there has been some distrust. According to me, I think it has been a total reversal of the trust. So it is not just trust, I think it is more aptly should be called as a mistrust. So the doctors were looked at God or semi-God, which is not right. But at the same time, I think we have moved from that position to the position on the opposite side. And unfortunately, we know that this is probably the most noble profession, which is respected by each and every one, from the best person on the highest position, from the person who's the poorest, non-affording. So I think somehow with the media hype, for some unknown reasons, or maybe for some of us it is a known reason, this is a mistrust which has been created, and we all feel that it is an artificial mistrust which has been created.
Dr. Chapo, if I could come to you, and from really the perspective of trust hospitals, and you've spent a lot of time at CMC Vellore, Are there certain things, are there certain learnings from your experiences that you can shed some light on around what can doctors do to actually surmount this challenge?
Thank you. I think our President Dr. Lal had said there are three stakeholders in this equation. There's the patient and family, the doctors and the media. And I think the major problem nowadays is actually the lack of communication from the side of the doctors, mainly because of pressure of time. And people tend to take on more and more patients. They spend less time explaining to the patient and the family what are the implications of the proposed treatment, and also giving a realistic outlook of what can be expected at the end of this treatment. I have friends who have spent lots and lots of money on treatment which is not likely to yield any really promising result. But they were never told. They are always told, the US, this drug is available, that drug is available, and for terminal malignancy, they keep pumping all kinds of medication. So I think there is a lot of, I think there are, all three are to blame. From the medical profession being aggressive without explaining the implications, from the patients and unrealistic expectations of the outcome, and thirdly from the media which plays up anything that goes wrong. So we need to be aware that there is no treatment which is 100% guaranteed.
How does a doctor really carve out time for doing exactly what Dr. Chatter said around really explaining, really making the patient and his family or her family feel comfortable in that time-starved environment?
I think this is really a two-way traffic. I don't believe that we are short of time. I think every patient is entitled to asking a set of questions, and I think as a doctor or as a physician you're obliged to try and answer that. I think where things start to go wrong is, as Dr. Charco mentioned, it is unrealistic expectations. To give you an example, a patient who's got coronary artery disease, bronchial asthma, diabetes, hypertension, and renal failure.
Do you see a different dynamic between nursing home doctors and patients, or do you see exactly the same kind of challenges coming through there?
We see slightly different dynamic. Reason being, I think that somewhere if one conducts oneself well, a nursing home owner or a doctor working in a nursing home is in a slightly advantageous position for the simple reason that there's a very one-to-one communication. Now, a nursing home doctor may not be available 24/7, but he is certainly available in most of the duty hours or the prescribed number of hours that a doctor needs to be available. There is a certain flexibility of the administrative procedure, for him to, rather than all the protocols of a big hospital. So that slight advantage may be there. Now, unfortunately, doctors offset that whole advantage by trying to make unrealistic promises, like you said, unrealistic goals and unrealistic taking in. I think the key is to take in a patient who you think you can do very well, and certainly not take in a patient in which your hospital is not geared to do. So I think that is one of the things where we should, where the nursing home doctors should look at the plus points of their practice, build that whole trust factor, because finally they are the closest that a doctor can be to a family physician.
What do you think a hospital administration can do to really make sure that this situation improves?
Well, I think the hospital administration has prime role in making the systems right. Here you are, there is a service provider. The main service provider is the doctor, and there is a guy who is taking the service. And there are people in between, the hospital system, the administrators, so they have to set the systems right so that nobody can do anything wrong. And as we are talking about consents and things, and make sure that all the procedures are followed properly, or documentation is right, and whatever we are promising, whatever we are delivering, those things are available, the theaters, the instrumentation, the infection prevention protocols, all these things, if they are set in place and they are right, then there will be very few chances that people will be dissatisfied. And the most important thing I think is when the dispute comes is, people are not so much worried what happened, but people are worried when the bill becomes too much. The biggest problem, the biggest dispute is when the bill is high. If you don't charge anybody, and there was a complication which happened, I can promise you, most people will not utter a word. Is when people have to, they see there is a complication, and then they say, oh, there's a complication, now I have to spend money also for that. This they find very unacceptable. But that's a fact of life. If you are taking international care, in fact, the international care you're taking at third world rates here. I mean, for example, if you are to get a knee replacement done in US, it will cost you $40,000. You get it done at $5,400 here.
So if I could ask you to, shed some light around how are you going to be thinking about quality and outcomes? How are some of these challenges going to be covered in that?
First of all, let me come back to what we were discussing, and most of the speakers have raised very relevant points. What is mistrust? It's just a word. It's an expression. Where does it come from? If you look at the genesis of that, every deficiency in the healthcare system will lead to complaints. Complaints will lead to doubts, and doubts will translate into mistrust. The utterances that are made today by the doctors, against the doctors, by the patients, or the family members, if you really look at them very carefully, then you will realize that though the doctor is the man who is hearing all that, he is the victim of all that, but he is not the creator of all that. If you look at the whole system, then in the system you have the policymakers, you have the providers, the promoters, you have the doctors, patients, family, and the allied industry that comes in. The complaints come from everywhere. If you look at the newspaper clippings, not everything that goes around and that has caught the attention of the media or the public had to do something with or anything with the doctors.
So thank you everybody, thank you very much to all of you. Very interesting conversation, and there's lots to be done on this front for sure. So thank you very much.
And I would also like to thank all our esteemed panelists for really discussing the relevant, challenging topics and the concerns of the patients. Thank you so much. It was a very well orchestrated session. Can you please have a good photograph now? We are very privileged and honored to have with us our Chief of Family Welfare, Shri Ashwini Kumar Chaudhary, and we would like to extend a very warm welcome to him by presenting the President's Model of Education to our Honorable Minister for gracing us on this momentous occasion. If I may be honest.
Yes, execute.
We would like to present Instance, it will be asked if I'm present to show to our Minister as well. Excellent, sir. The request I will receive from the former Secretary on the left and right.
Sir, in game company का CEO है, Karan Singh. ये लोग operational.
Deputy Request the Honorable Minister now to release the National Green and Company Knowledge Paper. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and at this point I would like to thank Mr. Karan Singh and Mr. Balajan for doing us the honor. We have now released the knowledge paper, second knowledge paper, a joint initiative of National PricewaterhouseCoopers on financing and funding new healthcare applications for terminal trials. और अब मैं दरख्वास्त करना चाहूंगी हमारे माननीय अतिथि श्री अश्विनी कुमार चौबे जी से कि वे मंच पर आए और हम सभी को संबोधित करें।
नेट हेल्थ के सम्मानित अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर अरविंद लाल जी, महासचिव श्री अंजन बोस जी और मंच पर उपस्थित सभी विशिष्ट अतिथिगण, सामने बैठे हुए हमारे सभी नेट से जुड़े हुए और तमाम विभिन्न संस्थाओं से आए हुए हमारे सभी अभ्यागतगण, बड़ी सौभाग्य की बात है कि आज मुझे आपने बुलाया और आपके बीच मुझे मिलने का एक सुखद अवसर मिला। मैं इसके लिए आभारी भी हूँ कि आप मुझको यहाँ बुला करके स्वास्थ्य सेवा के बारे में जो आप ये गोष्ठी आयोजित किए हैं उसमें और भी क्या अच्छा हो सकता है, आप सब लोग विचार करेंगे और आपके विचारों के बाद हम उसे निश्चित रूप से स्वास्थ्य विभाग की ओर से सरकार उस पर गंभीरता से विचार करेगी। मुझे 2 स्मारका जो प्रकाशन हुआ, ये दोनों स्मारका शोभेदेव जो ऑपरेशनल एक्सेलेंस इन हेल्थ केयर डिलीवरी इन इंडिया और दूसरा फाइनेंसिंग एंड फंडिंग इंडियन हेल्थ केयर, बहुत मैंने इसको ऊपर के जो कुछ भाव है उसको समझा, भीतर में जब पढ़ूंगा तो मुझे और भी कुछ अच्छा लगेगा। कहते हैं कि आगे का फेज जैसा होता है वो वही बताता है भविष्य। मुझे लग रहा है कि ये दोनों स्मारका, ये दोनों जो शोभेनियर है वो लाभदायी सिद्ध होगा हेल्थ केयर के दृष्टिकोण से, इसमें कहीं दो मत नहीं। मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि आप सभी स्वास्थ्य क्षेत्र की समस्याओं के निराकरण के लिए समर्पित हैं और समय समय पर अपने बहुमूल्य सुनिश्चित सुझाव सरकार को देते रहे और सरकार उसको अमल करती रही है ताकि हेल्थ केयर दुरुस्त हो, किफायती हो, आम जन के लिए सुलभ और सस्ता हो। इस प्रकार के स्वास्थ्य के क्षेत्र में निजी क्षेत्र की जो भागीदारी है, पीपीपी बोर्ड, आप उसके भी हिमायती हैं, आपने उसके बारे में भी सुझाव दिया है। तो निश्चित रूप में पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप को भी हमने अंगीकार किया है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत, वंदे मातरम, नमस्कार।
Time, I believe. So request all the delegates to kindly remain seated, and I shall be briefing you shortly. We have Dr. Rana Mehta, Partner Leader Healthcare PwC, and our second session is on the topic Healthcare Financing and Funding, which will achieve the goal of Empower. And I would like to invite our panelists up on the stage for our second session. Mr. Ramesh Krishnan, Chief Executive Officer, India Operations Division and Head of the Middle East and South Asia region for Parkway Pensai Limited.
I actually want to look at, because this is one of the largest contributory schemes anywhere in the world. No countries actually tried this. It also, in a way, is path-breaking. But I'll start with Anthony. And Anthony, in a way, how do we demystify this from us, move the hype away from the reality?
Yeah, thank you, Rana. Firstly, I'm not sure if NHPS is troubling me or troubling me. So it is certainly a subject which has got humongous attention, and probably in the recent past, best of my memory, it's one subject during budget day, after budget day, until today, seems to be getting a lot of attention. Initially by the press, and now I think there is a lot of action behind the scenes.
We come to a stage where we may have to factor in a -5% next year. So are we actually viable as a sector, and why would anyone want to invest in now?
Yeah, I think, Rana, that's probably the key question that all of us sitting in this room are asking ourselves, right? So it's always good to be on a panel post the minister has sort of talked about how we are going to shake up the world, how we are actually going to, create healthcare for every Indian. But guess what? We don't really know where the money is going to come from. So I think the big question, therefore, is that a sector which was built and has been built over the last almost 4 decades, with now current capex per bed of about 1.25 odd crores, year on year cost escalations jumping at least inflation plus 7%, 5 to 7%. Manpower costs jumping 10 to 15%. Those who run rental facilities, average rental increase every year is about 5%. In that kind of an inflationary structure, guess what? Clinicians' cost jumping probably 15 to 20% year on year. Because of every time you launch a new specialty, you launch a new hospital, you put clinicians on retainership, and that's the kind of life that we have actually built our healthcare facilities for.
So in a way, the maths is not adding up going ahead. I think from an investment point of view, you were one of the first to get private equity investment. In a long time, you made the blue-eyed boy in India as an example. You later on went to one of the most successful IPOs. Today, as you tour the world, and people are looking at investment in healthcare, what's the refrain there today?
Yeah. So, as you rightly said, I've had my inning with both private equity investors as well as public market investors. And in the current role, I meet a lot of investors across the world. And I think if I were to break this group into two groups, let's say if I go to US, Americas, those people clearly recognize the fact that India offers a great opportunity. I have never ever met anybody who says that healthcare is not going to grow in India. I think that fact is very clearly out there. But in the recent past, this community is a bit confused and lost on two counts. Is that why don't they see a large-scale institution, especially in the public market space, because they hardly have any player where they can invest. Maybe a couple of hospitals and now a couple of diagnostics players.
So Rajat, on the provider side, it's probably been one of the most turbulent years. You had demonetization, which had its consequence. You had this regulatory overreach in a way, which obviously impacted business. You had price controls. You probably had everything you could ask for in a perverse sort of way. But do you think some of these events, as we look at, in hindsight, could actually put those building blocks and we come up with a much stronger and more robust system?
Straight answer, I think so. You see, at a macro level, I wonder what has changed. There is a growing NCD burden, unfortunately. You find increasing penetration of health insurance slowly. And if you do a mapping of NCR, we found that about 50% of the population is covered by some scheme or the other. So you can't ignore this. Now you may say, which is a very bold statement, I think it is. And devil will lie in details. So at a macro perspective, India has always been a land of infinite opportunities. Unfortunately, in reality, only 20% plan.
But the whole ecosystem needs to be strengthened, and there are a lot of opportunities in the ecosystem which people should invest in, because it's just not putting the bets up. How do you plan to take that forward?
So, Rana, just to take a cue from what Vishal and what Rajat said, that the traditional model has to go through some kind of a realignment. So there is an opportunity from an investor's perspective. There is an opportunity that we see even in the traditional format. It depends on how you've structured the model. And as Vishal said, that in the traditional format, one would have to look at cost structures and few other cost buckets that needs to be realigned with what the regulation expects us to offer at. We see there are lots of green shoots. In fact, we've invested across your urban traditional healthcare delivery models and tier 2 healthcare delivery models.
So Vivek, I'll ask you, one of the things is the whole role of the medtech players is changing. They were looked at more at, just giving in the equipment and moving out, but you're now a longer stakeholder. You also have long-term access to capital. How do you see this fitting into the new paradigm?
Yeah. So I think Anjanda is getting edgy, so let me keep it short. As medtech, as the landscape changes, we are also changing along with the landscape. So 10 years ago, 12 years ago, if you look at a medtech company, we were just technology creators, and bigger was better. We created the most expensive equipment, and we were just doing transactions.
Something which has not happened for 70 years may not just happen with willpower alone. You need to deliver. I and the panelists, we don't want a standing ovation. we are happy to take it and meet you over for lunch. Thank you.
And thank you so much. Can you come down? Our third panel discussion is on medical tourism. What are the enabling factors needed to achieve the goal of reinventing India as a highly quality destination for medical and wellness travel? Before we move ahead, we would like to present a bouquet of flowers to our guest of honor for this session, Sri Satyajit Rajan, and I request Ms. Charu Sehgal to kindly present the bouquet to our guest of honor, Sri Satyajit Rajan. Thank you so much, ma'am. And now I hand over the floor to Ms. Charu Sehgal. I now hand over the floor to Ms. Charu Sehgal.
Just before we begin the session, just give you a few statistics on medical tourism. So while request, maybe sir, you could just open for us and just give us a 3-4 minutes sort of brief on from a Ministry of Tourism perspective. You know, what is it that you see from the point of view of medical tourism, and what are your thoughts on what we are doing in this area?
Thanks, Charu. I thought you said that till a couple of years ago there wasn't a conference where the medical tourism wasn't a part of it. So are you trying to say that now it's not there? The last 6 months that I have been here, we've seen conferences organized by FICCI. Actually, FICCI in the last 3 years has taken a big lead. And they've been organizing conferences year after year. Conferences, in the last conference they had, doctors and other reps from over 55 countries. And you know, in a very competitive market like this, tourism is a very, very competitive market which generates employment, and all countries are vying for this slot. To get the percentage up even by 1% is not very easy.
So maybe if you could just briefly take us through your journey of how you've seen medical tourism progress, and what you see are, is the reality, let's say, vis-a-vis what we just heard from the department perspective.
Thank you, Charu. I'd like to thank the NATHEALTH team for this opportunity, and thank you, Mr. Rajan, for your opening remarks. So a lady in New York needs to see a specialist, so she makes a call, and the call center for that call is handled in Chennai. Her appointment is sorted. She enters the office of the doctor, and she's greeted by a nurse who studied in Kottayam and then went to Dubai and then moved to the United States 5 years earlier. She sees her, and then she's ushered into the room where she's seen who happens to be of Indian origin and moved to the United States 20 years ago.
Is it really possible that we actually use technology to sort of leapfrog? And we have heard of some bottlenecks, and we've heard that they're lagging. But can we really leverage technology and sort of get to the next level faster?
On a lighter note, Charu asked me why am I on the panel. That's sort of an existential question that we are answering in the medtech space overall. Why do we exist at all when, the focus would perhaps be to bring down healthcare to the lowest common denominator. That said, on a more serious note.
Dr. Harsh Mahajan, if I could just come to you. Again, from someone who sort of is a leader in the whole imaging and diagnostic space, how do you think, where does this fit into the whole medical tourism opportunity, and how can we leverage some of this either from preventive or health checks, or if you just have your perspective?
See, taking over from what Prabir just said, we today have the best technologies that are available in the world. At times, in this country, because it's so much more private driven, you may be a year or 2 years ahead of even the West when it comes to technology, because here it's entrepreneur driven. So you say, I want this new thing that's come. And so, you know, the whole cycle is reversed from where we started 30 years ago with the MRI.
So what, from a Hinduja's perspective, what is your sense of, you know, how to take these decisions, and what's your view on this segment?
Thank you, sir. Before I answer that, I just wanted to give a few thoughts on what Mr. Rajan has said. I think dental tourism is always easier than medical because we come here for a holiday and right away get it. Medical, so that's why dental will always be more popular, more easier, and many NRIs will come home and get it. But and another thing, taking off from what Anupam said, you know, why it is not taking off. See, when a patient is looking for treatment here, they are looking at, of course, the clinical facilities, which they excel is excellent, the infrastructure, which is excellent in many hospitals. Then, of course, country as a destination. So, a combination of all three is what is determining the choice for a patient to come to India. And I can be a little honest here that country's perception is a little low compared to the other countries in the Asia region, which are doing well in medical tourism. So, I think that is something we should fix as a government.
Harish, I was speaking to you, and you had lots of, you know, you had an interesting sort of story on how you moved from, you know, focusing on preventive and how you sort of, you know, expanded in a big way into the whole inpatient space, and also some suggestions on what you're seeing as best practices across the world. So in the next just 2-3 minutes, if you could just, you know, share that with us, please.
Thanks, Charu. I'll be short. First of all, Mr. Rajan, thank you very much for putting up the facilitation centers. I mean, the facilitation centers at the 6 airports across the country is a good step, good first step, sir. It doesn't end there. It's a good first step. We need facilitation centers in at least all the metro cities and at least Tier 1 airports. Okay, given the fact that this government is talking about regional connectivity. Okay. Secondly, to take from Dr. Harsh Majan's point, when you need an integrator, come to us. I mean, somebody like us works with hospitals, more than 700 here in India and more than 300 outside the country. We are seeing, you know, how different countries position themselves in terms of medical travel. I just give a very small example of a country which is very familiar with all our partner hospitals here, like Oman, right?
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your inputs, and maybe Anjanda, we need a longer session in the next conference.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for having this session. Medical tourism is quite a prominent topic. And thank you for our guest of honor, Sri Rajan, for sharing your ideas and showing us the roadmap to improve medical tourism in India. We would like to present a song, token of appreciation to our esteemed. For our next session, the fourth panel discussion, which is on primary care, health and beyond, strategies for a better India. And this session is aligned with our theme, Heal and Empower. And moderating this, we have Ms. Priyanka Agarwal, who would be moderating the session. She is Partner, Healthcare Practice, BCG India. Ladies and gentlemen, please give our esteemed panelists a huge round of applause. And Ms. Priyanka, tough task for you to wrap up and start the entire session in 30 minutes. Quite a tedious task, let me show you. I hand over the floor to you now.
Firstly, thank you for the opportunity. I'll try to keep it crisp and insightful. The session is really themed primary care, strategies for the future. What are some of the things that you see will change going forward?
Thank you. I feel happy that I got an opportunity to work all levels of healthcare, right from working from a dispensary, a primary health center, a district hospital, a community center, and right to the, say, apex center of the country. In addition, I got the opportunity to work in the Directorate of Health Services, and I also got the opportunity to work in the medical college. So what I have seen, actually, we have to come out of the concept of the primary health care. Actually, we are always keep on talking and limiting ourselves to that area. What I have observed in my this 25 years in aims and 10 years putting in the state health system. The one thing which is required is just confidence of the patient who visits your healthcare facility, whether it is a dispensary and whether it is a district hospital aims. Because people, when we keep on talking about the accessibility and affordability and all those things that we keep on discussing and the pricing, I share my own experience that if you are able to spend time with your patient,
in then making sure how do you make care, there effective. It would really be good to hear from you on what are some of the ingredients which you have seen on the ground, which builds that trust back into the only points that people have access to there, which are the primary healthcare centers.
Thank you, Priyanka. Just there are briefly 2-3 points that I would like to cover. Is that first of all, an introduction of what we do. So I represent an organization called World Health Partners. That's a registered non-profit Indian society, and we specialize in harnessing digital tools and management systems to deliver healthcare to rural communities, which are both poor and underprivileged and undeserved. Primarily what we have been doing is, and we have been working since the last 10 years in the remotest villages of UP, Bihar, West Bengal, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. And we've seen that a lot of times, and as everybody sitting here knows, that India is a country with vast national resources and medical resources, and healthcare especially is flourishing here. And we've heard a lot about medical tourism now, which is the most upcoming stream.
Shravan, maybe I'd like to bring you in at this point, and also the role of diagnostics and the role of having earlier diagnosis, even taking it more upstream to prevention before everybody ends up in a tertiary care hospital. And given that you work in diagnostics, maybe you want to add a few perspectives from there on how that can make a difference. So how care is being delivered today.
Certainly, thank you, Priyanka. Just to take a note from what Prachi said about access and being able to reach the tier 2, tier 3 cities, the rural communities. We're fortunate to be in an industry where diagnostics has managed to penetrate that and has done so for the last half a century in different ways, whether that means having our technologists draw samples from the patient's homes or in point of care settings. So that's one area where diagnostics has a major role. But really, Priyanka, multiple challenges exist in the industry with the existing primary healthcare setup. We all know, we've read from various reports about the shortages and resources in the primary healthcare setting, and whether it's in terms of people or funding or facilities.
Amit, let me bring you in here. You do a lot of work on chronic care and dealing with patients and the patient perspective, which is, I think, just the treatment of chronic care is equally a problem even in urban India, leave alone rural India, and there are very few primary touch points with the patients unless they land up with a complication in the hospital. So maybe I'll bring you in to share some of the thoughts and perspectives and ideas on that perspective.
How much time do I have?
I think just literally a few minutes.
So, because the reason why I asked you came is I want to start with asking one question to the audience. How many of y'all have a family doctor? And I hope y'all know what the meaning of family doctor is. There are 7 people in this audience of 100 to 150 who raise their hands. That's one problem. Second piece, how much of your primary care is covered by insurance? Raise your hands. I've got 3 hands, 4 hands. 5 hands in a group of 150. Second problem. Third, in a setting which is a core delivery need of the country, we have a situation where in every part of the world, and if you see it, you have the private sector and the government playing a role hand in hand in delivering primary care.
Thank you so much. I don't think we have time to take questions, but thank you for everybody for being keen listeners and for the panel sharing their views. Thank you.
Well, a quick reminder to all of you that we're scheduled to have our valedictory session at 4. And now a tough task for our next session moderator, Mr. Karan Singh, who is going to be moderating this session of ours. which is on the global perspective on Indian healthcare and its evolution. May I please invite Mr. Karan Singh, Partner Managing Director, Bain & Company, India, to kindly come up on the stage. Dr. Sudarshan Ballal, Governing Council Member, NATHEALTH and Chairman, Manipal Hospitals.
What would you suggest are the big learnings from Indonesia, from Europe? You know all these systems. And then also you have the privilege of actually working and understanding the etiquette. So what would you like to share in terms of how we should think about the design when you think about the learnings from these countries and systems?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I would say that if we had a formula for reform, that book would have been written and we could follow that formula, and that would be very easy. But I think that it's very important to think about the context of any country. And I would say there are some patterns that we need to follow, where we need to think about. One is leadership, and I can think that reforms in Turkey, in Thailand, in China were very important due to the leadership at the top. Take China. There were really three factors that motivated the leadership in China. Number one, they saw that politically, and they often did very sophisticated surveys at the local levels, they found that health was at the bottom in terms of government performance.
What would be some of the radical solutions for us to address diseases like oncology? And if you were to sit down with Mr. Nata, what would be your 2 or 3 recommendations on combating NCDs?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the question, especially the last one, and I would depend on you to get me in front of Mr. Nata. I've been trying for the last 2 years, I've not been there. So
Anjana and Dr. Lal.
But overall, I think this question is very relevant, and it looks like to be a very simple question, but when you look at the onco diseases which is affecting NCDs, as an NCD, when you look at some of the developed countries, even several of the developed countries, the penetration rate in terms of diagnosis and screening and treatment is not at, say, 80%, 90%.
Talk a little bit about what GE is doing in India, for India and the world. And what would be the approach to taking the mass market?
No, thank you for that. So, we think very deeply about this issue in India. We've been in India, GE has been in India for almost 100 years. Healthcare has been in India for a few decades now. And for us, accessibility and affordability are two sides of the same coin. And our approach primarily is on 3 prongs. One is, do we have the right product which is focused on addressing the unique needs of the country to that extent, and talk a little bit about both there. Second is, once we have the product, do we have the right distribution network and the cost to serve to be able to take it to the remotest corners of the country? And third, even after we have all of that, can we create an empowering ecosystem and enablers which can actually make sure that the folks who buy the equipment have a viable, economically viable practice they can run, because that's ultimately how we will get the market. Effectively, a market which is 70% private sector driven. If you don't have an economically viable model, you'll never be able to that.
What should the innovation agenda be for India? And I think there's a big buzzword around telehealth or digital health. Can you help us demystify that and what it means for India?
And when you look at the innovation agenda for a country like India, it's important to start from the country, from the needs in the country. And then it's also always about looking for ways of achieving better outcomes at a lower cost. And ultimately there's many ways of achieving better outcomes. And the better outcome can be in terms of a better clinical outcome, but it can also be in terms of just making something less expensive, making it cheaper, or making it more efficient. And digitalization and that whole space of IT presents a huge opportunity. It presents a huge opportunity globally, but also here in India.
So what would be your take or the outlook for private sector delivery? And the big question we are always struggling with, as we've talked about today, is how do you dramatically expand the soft infrastructure? So just your thoughts on both those points, please.
I would like to start on a very optimistic note. We certainly have come a long way since the time I had more hair and less grey hair, and certainly more hair. We were a country that hardly had tertiary health care or anything more than a common cold and cough. You had to either go to the metro or if you're well off, go to the UK or the US. But now there's a reversal of role. In fact, we have world-class hospitals in practically every city in the country, and we have many patients from abroad coming to India for care. And interestingly, we also have a reverse brain drain. When I was a student, our only dream was to go to the US, UK or some other country. But now I interview practically every week a couple of doctors who want to come back from the US and UK. That's the good news.
So with that, just a big hand to the panelists. Thank you very much.
And thanks so much, Mr. Director, for conducting the session and also wrapping up in the constrained time. And thank you so much. We'd like to give a small token of appreciation to our esteemed panelists up on the stage, and I'd like to invite Mr. Gautam Khanna to kindly come up on the stage and present a small token of appreciation to all our esteemed panelists. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now have come towards our last, most important session of the day, the grand finale of the day, the valedictory session, which is on National Health Protection Scheme, NHPS, a path-breaking game changer and the way forward. NATHEALTH had recommended making health insurance mandatory, and the National Health Protection Scheme 2018, Ayushman Bharat, with the provision of 5 lakh rupees per family per year, should significantly cover the insurance needs of the country. Yet, there are some other critical needs which have to be looked at, and which will be deliberated upon in this session of ours. We are really privileged to have with us Ms. Fatima Mahdi Karan, who is going to moderate this session of ours. She is the consulting editor, BTVI. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to Ms. Fatima Mahdi Karan. Mr. Daljit Singh, Senior Vice President, NATHEALTH and President, Fortis Healthcare Limited. Ms. Terry Bressenham, President and CEO, Sustainable Healthcare Solutions, GE Healthcare. Ma'am, we are introducing and welcoming all our guests. May I request Mr. Bose to kindly present bouquet to Ms. Fatima. Mr. Bose has been running around and he's like really into the field. Dr. Arvind Lal, may I request you to kindly felicitate Shri Manoj Chalani. Mr. Daljit Singh, may I request you to kindly felicitate Mr. Alok Kumar. Dr. Arvind Lal, I request you once again to kindly welcome Dr. K.K. Agarwal.
Terry, I'm going to start with you. In terms of your experience in India, it would be very interesting for us to hear about what you think some key takeaways have been, because the way things are moving now is probably going to be at a faster pace than what you've witnessed perhaps in your experience so far.
Well, first I'd say it's a big congratulations to the government to take this bold step. I mean, it is a very courageous step to offer universal health coverage. That being said, we know there are a lot of gaps in the system as it stands today. When we look at the opportunities for what does universal coverage really entail, you have to go quickly to the universal access model. And what does that really mean? And I think we are very keen on how to help build better public health services. I think sanitation and public health are a big component of this.
In terms of the challenges as well as how one can actually leapfrog as we were just talking about.
Thanks.
So I would say that this announcement of this Ayushman Bharat is really an attempt to leapfrog. And what you see there is a clear mention of comprehensive primary health care through 1.5 lakh health and wellness centers.
What are some of the key learnings there?
First of all, I would like to congratulate the government for coming out with a very, very, aggressive and ambitious scheme. And this is the biggest such scheme in the world which has ever been attempted. So I don't think we should be skeptical about it. And we would like to, welcome the government in starting it. And one of the things which we have noticed so far is that primary health care in India is absolutely, below par. So the government has got to fix that. And there are, questions in our mind that when you have 25,000 primary health centers and many of them are not manned, etc., how do you expect 1,25,000, to be manned? But the answer has already been given that there are going to be bridge courses for, Ayurvedic doctors and Ayush doctors, etc., treating some kind of, diseases. And the nurse practitioners that we don't have, we'll have to elevate something. So one thing is absolutely sure in my mind, and that is that we need boots on the ground, which we don't have.
Others so that we can actually make this an efficient platform, bringing better healthcare really to more people and at lower costs.
Yeah, okay. So I personally feel, again, Dr. Lal has mentioned it, but I think it's a fantastic announcement. It's a very audacious announcement, and I think all of us welcome it because it is something that was required for a long time for a country. Having said that, it's perhaps easier to make the announcement than to implement it. The devil is in the detail. And as we were discussing over lunch with some people, my personal opinion is that it's far more complex than the Aadhaar card program that we ran or the GST program that we ran. Healthcare is about people. It's in a domain that's not really understood, and it touches the lives of people at an individual level.
Now, Dr. Agarwal, I want to come to you on a question that I've been grappling with myself, which is that how do you incentivize and also incentivize, I guess, the hospitals in a sense, and also how do you track quality when it comes to the outcome of, say the rollout of this entire scheme, because not every hospital is going to be or should be eligible for it. How are you going to actually track those outcomes? Should it be linked to the kind of infrastructure a hospital has, or should it be actually a way of tracking patient outcomes as well? What do you think is a realistic
Let me come back to two groups of, when we talk about universal health care, the 50 crore group and the 70 crore group, which is not it.
The first point that I want to make is a good health system is not built in a day. Neither is universal health coverage attained in a day. Germany took almost 80 years, Japan took 40 years. You, at least, even if whatever leapfrogging you do, you will require some time to build up a good health system. That is point number one. I think if somebody is expecting, or if the expectations are that just because we have made an announcement, we will have a universal health system in the next 2 years or 1 year, I think that is a somewhat unrealistic expectation. Now, to build a good health system, you need people, you need management processes, you need IT, because you need to leverage a lot of that development so that service to 1 billion Indians can be ensured.
Tracking the right mechanisms, getting that right insurance to the right people. How are we going to do this?
Tough.
I didn't think it was going to be an easy.
Very tough.
An easy answer.
Very tough. For those of us who have been in healthcare for some time, especially in India, I think if I ask most of you, give top 3 challenges that you think this country is facing in healthcare, I think almost everyone's answered data and inadequacy of data will feature.
Congratulations to all the stakeholders who participated in this, and I know that this is a topic that's something that that is very relevant in their own professions. Thank you very much for that.
And thank you so much, Fatima, for conducting the session, and all ICU panelists for really brainstorming on this burning topic. We would like to felicitate all our esteemed panelists with a small token of appreciation. Thank you so much.